The BMW 7 Series is certainly a technological showcase, but even with all the advanced systems stripped away, it's a formidable motorcar. Superb engines and a keen focus on driver enjoyment, as well as the top-level luxury that's a must in this sector, are what makes the 7 Series so desirable. What would a more compact and affordable Rolls-Royce be like? Well, one day soon you may find out, but in the meantime you can get a pretty good idea at the wheel of this 5th generation BMW 7 Series saloon. Now, BMW of course owns Britain's most iconic car maker, and you can bet that a lot of what's been developed for this 7 will also make its way into the forthcoming smaller model that Rolls-Royce is determined to offer high flyers the world over. All of which meant that the development team behind this top BMW had to be right on their game if the same technology was going to filter through to the best car in the world. But isn't that a tag that might also conceivably apply to this flagship 7 Series, given that it's a test bed for BMW's most groundbreaking innovations? Let's find out. Just how involving should a car like this be to drive? Well, it's a subject that's fiercely debated, not least within BMW, whose engineers veered and erred perhaps on the side of limousine comfort when it came to the Mark IV 7 Series, therefore relinquishing the title of ultimate driving machine to rivals from Audi and Jaguar. Now, with this Mark V, it's much more driver orientated, which does mean that some rivals marginally shade it in terms of ride and refinement. But the balance that BMW has chosen shouldn't upset those CEOs who simply want to sit in the back and read the FT. Should the current economic climate force them to sack the chauffeur, however, there are plenty of compensations to be had from a seat up front, even on the kind of twisting secondary roads where cars like this feel least at home very often. Now, some of the credit for this can go down to BMW's dynamic drive control system, which offers a choice of 3 suspension settings. There's comfort for limo-like ride during motorway work. There's sport or sport plus that gives you a flatter, more firm ride with shorter gearing and a quicker throttle response. And then there's normal, which is a pretty good compromise between the two for everyday use. Even within these settings, the technology can adapt the car's steering, dampers, throttle response and gear shift speed according to the driving conditions and the driver's style. There's also a dynamic traction control system that the driver can activate to enhance wheel slippage for sporty driving or to improve the car's performance on snow and ice. If, like 80% of buyers, you go for the 245 brake horsepower straight 6 730D diesel variant that I'm driving here, you'll enjoy a massive 540 Newton meters of torque. That's pulling power that outstrips the equivalent 326 brake horsepower twin turbo petrol 6-cylinder model. That's the 740i, and even gets close to the V8 407 brake horsepower 750i variant. Now, 60 in the 730D is 7.3 seconds away, en route to a maximum speed of 153 miles an hour. Now, for high-tech heaven, optional driver aids. Well, they include an integral active 4-wheel steering system for extra high-speed stability and easy parking. You've got a very clever night vision system borrowed from the military that can even detect errant pedestrians and warn you. And then something that I feel is really clever. There's cameras everywhere on this car. This is a side view camera for blind junctions. So I get to a junction here. On the screen here I can see easily to my left and my right, and I can then pull out safely. There is of course a rear parking camera as well, and then you've got a row of buttons down here. The first one is a lane deviation warning system. This is for when you're feeling drowsy at night, you're in a motorway, maybe you just veer out of your lane unintentionally. It'll vibrate the steering wheel to warn you. You've also got a lane departure warning system that also vibrates the steering wheel, but this time if you indicate and there's a vehicle in your blind spot, it'll stop you pulling out by, as I say, vibrating the wheel and warning you. You've also got a heads-up display here that shows you the speed that you're going, your sat-nav instructions, and a very clever speed limit warning system. There's a camera that actually reads speed limit signs and shows you the speed limit on the road that you're travelling on. Air suspension is also an option. There's nothing very groundbreaking about the way this 7 Series looks. The exterior lines are clearly derived from previous models, with elements carried over from some of BMW's current products too. The front end is dominated by a more upright front kidney grille than you got in the Mark IV model, with these dominating xenon headlamps. There's a pronounced shoulder line that runs the length of the car and culminates in this raised section on top of the bonnet. Inside there's more of the same, with design features that BMW owners will be more than familiar with. As you'd expect for this kind of money, everything feels beautifully built and has a lovely feel in operation. The only exception perhaps being this wheel that, though perfectly functional, does feel a bit 3 Series. Go for the long wheelbase version and you get 14 centimetres of extra backseat legroom in the rear here, and that gives you almost presidential levels of comfort. But as you can see, even in the standard version, there's quite enough space to waft around in limo-like luxury. It's even better if you can find a couple of £1,000 extra for the wonderful multi-adjustable comfort seats, which I guarantee are better than the chairs in your front living room. Luggage resides in a 500-litre boot, slightly smaller than that of a comparable Mercedes S-Class. Now, most 7 Series models sell in the £55,000 to £70,000 price bracket. Now that's comparable to obvious rivals like the Mercedes S-Class, the Audi A8, the Jaguar XJ and Lexus's LS. There's a £3,000 premium if you want the long wheelbase version. Most buyers will choose either short or long wheelbase versions of the 6-cylinder 3-litre 245 brake horsepower 730D diesel variant that I've got here. But those who want to stay on friendly terms with their local filling station can also consider various petrol variants, the main ones being a 3-litre 6-cylinder 326 brake horsepower 740i model, or a 4.4 litre 407 brake horsepower V8 750i variant. All models get the latest iDrive control system with programmable buttons here for easier access to regularly used functions. There's also a 4-zone air conditioning climate control system. Now, BMW's Dynamic Stability Control Plus system is standard across the range, and bundled up in this package are a whole series of things, including hill start assist, brake drying and pre-tensioning, soft stop and brake fade compensation. It's all designed to make sure that your anchors function optimally, even in wet conditions or under repeated use. Everything's designed to smooth the way that this 7 Series goes about its business. Now, even CEOs are concerned about running costs these days, so it's a major feather in BMW's cap that in 730D form at least, this car is the most efficient and the most cost-effective of its kind to run, despite residual values that are still just behind those of Mercedes S-Class. That's down as ever with the Munich brand to their efficient dynamics technology program, which does things like manufacture key body panels out of aluminium and use brake energy regeneration that reclaims energy that would have been lost under braking or in the overrun to recharge the car's battery. Now, the results are genuinely impressive. This 730D records the kind of figures that you'd expect from a compact executive saloon: 39 miles to the gallon on the combined cycle and 192 grams per kilometre of CO2. Even the petrol V8 750i manages nearly 25 miles to the gallon and 266 grams per kilometre of CO2. Insurance groups across the range, well, they vary between 19 and 20. If you want a car that showcases the current state of the automotive art, then this 7 Series is as good a place to start as any. Whether you prioritise clever gadgetry, high-tech engineering or sharp running costs in your luxury saloon. This BMW operates from an agenda that will certainly impress. Conservatively styled, it may be. Conservative in outlook, it certainly isn't.